All right, this is Charlie Cradaville here with New Brunswick Today. We're today going to be interviewing the newest Assemblyman in the New Jersey Legislature, Mr. Robert Karabinchak from Edison. Thank you for coming.
Charlie, thank you very much for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. So you have just been appointed to fill the remainder of an unexpired term, and you're running to keep your seat and get a full or another 1 year and then another 2-year term after that. Tell me, why did you go for this position? What do you hope to accomplish down in Trenton for the people of your district?
Well, I've been involved in politics for over 20-some years, both on the zoning board, the planning board, master plan, technical review, and then obviously as a councilman in Edison for over 7 years, and this year being my 8th year. And the opportunity came up when Senator Barnes became a judge. And then Assemblyman Patrick Dignan, wanted to move up to the Senate, and he moved up, which was no problem. And during the assembly race, there was 4 other candidates that ran for that spot. The reason that I would have wanted to get this spot was, one is that I'm extremely proactive, I'm involved. Time doesn't mean anything to me because it means more to do something constructively for the residents and my constituents now in the LD18 than to just sit back and watch. I believe that there's a lot of changes that are going to come down the pike in the next few years in the legislature. And I think it's time to absolutely go out of our way to watch our residents' money. Unfortunately, money is spent haphazardly in some spots, in some areas. Is there always room for improvement? The answer is yes. And I think I'll have something to contribute down in the state.
Cool. And what would you say your priorities are, during your time in this position? What are the big things you think the state is facing?
Well, the state has a lot of issues, and grabbing one is always is tough because there's so many. For myself, I like the environmental issues. I sit on that committee, and along with solid waste. The technologies that are out today could actually stop and curtail the increasing heights of landfills. There's technology out there today to change it. I would like to bring to the state that technology and let the powers to be and the engineers look at this. While I sat on the MCUA as a commissioner, I brought the same technology to Middlesex County. And we looked at it, the engineers looked at it, and it was something that was extremely viable. I don't want to see mountains and mountains of landfills anymore. And there's the technology to stop that. And I'd like to be bringing that forward. That's one of the things I'd like to see happen.
Okay. And tell me about your time on the MCUA. What things do you feel you, as a group, accomplished? I know it's a challenging thing dealing with garbage and waste and all that. What do you feel your contribution was?
Well, I sat on the MCUA. Obviously, we always watch the dollars. It's not a glorious place to be talking about solid waste and wastewater.
Sure.
But it's something that touches everybody. In their lives, they have to flush the toilet and they have to throw the garbage away. Recycling is something that has to expand. Composting for certain garbages should expand. That's just you putting it back, and there's a cycle that could be produced there. I'm very proud of Middlesex County's wastewater treatment plants and how the quality of the treatment is, and what we're putting back into the river is way far superior than it was many years ago. As the technology changes, I'd like to see all of our treatment plants change. Not just 1 or 2, I'd like to see them all change. And again, with the new technologies on solid waste, I'd like to see that also become the future. Nothing ever should stay the same forever. And this is something that nobody looks at because they don't even think about it. This is something that would help environmentally, and this would help cost-wise, and this would help just as people, if they ever do think about it, think that we're doing the right thing, and that's what this is about.
Okay. I wanted to ask about a couple issues that came up during your time on the MCUA. I know there was a lawsuit. A contractor alleged fraud and pay-to-play on the part of the MCUA, and I know that it's probably one of the most complicated lawsuits I've ever seen. How can you explain that lawsuit? What do you think was really behind that, and what how did it get to that point where there was such a complicated dispute between one of your contractors and the MCUA?
Well, I wasn't there when the contract actually went into force. I wasn't there when the contractor was terminated. I wasn't there when the lawsuit started. Unfortunately, I was there when I saw the lawsuit in play. I don't know if it's over, so I don't know what I can say or not say about it. I will agree with you, it is phenomenally complicated. When it's something that complicated, I have to say this, but I don't believe that putting this in front of a jury is going to ever get the right decision. Not saying that our jury pool isn't smart, but this is so complicated. You have to have an engineering degree to understand what and how it actually happened and what the issues are. It's phenomenally complicated. I would prefer to see a 3-judge panel make the decision instead of a jury.
And I know also the person who was working as the treasurer of the MCUA was charged, pled guilty to, I guess, writing herself checks from the public money.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? Was there a mistake or a shortfall in the auditing that's done every year, or was how was the authority in that situation?
Well, unfortunately, somebody who works in the same position for 20, 30 years, and they become desperate, and they find ways that they can circumvent the auditing and the system itself. That happens. Not just here, it's happened all across the state and probably the nation, and who knows, probably worldwide. Unfortunately, the young lady who this happened to, obviously she lost her job. She has to pay it all back, plus attorney fees, which she's doing. It's unfortunately it was a sign of desperation, and there was other avenues to go down that she shouldn't have put herself into that harm's way legally.
Sure. And so you think it wasn't something that was going on for all 27 years that she was there? It was
And I could tell you, definitely it was not. And I could also tell you that the accountability and the process has changed.
Changed for the better.
Changed that it will never happen again.
Okay. And she actually was, did have to go to court, but she got off with no jail sentence. Do you think that was the fair outcome, the right outcome?
For this particular case, yes.
Okay. And so I want to switch gears and talk about some of the things going on in Trenton right now. That everybody's debating what to do to fund the infrastructure improvements for roads, bridges, and the transportation infrastructure. What's your take on raising the gas tax? Is it something you support? Do you have a particular deal or a plan that you're willing to get behind to do that?
Well, if you look at my record, I did support it the first time. Underneath the speaker's new plan that he created with the governor, and obviously the Senate did not go that route. There's been so much talk in the last couple months about different plans, different versions, different this. Unfortunately, you can't change history. You can't take back what unfortunately has occurred that put the TTF in this position. Do I think that there should be some movement moving forward? Yes, I do. As much as people become very emotional that you're raising my taxes, we need the roads to be able to have our people move and go to work. People go through our state. And I'll name like the project that took a few years on the turnpike. by 8A, where it narrowed down from 6 lanes to 3 lanes. It was a disaster. Today, it is an absolute charm to drive on the turnpike, and that's something that this fund produced. Is there other places like that in the state? Yes, there is. Obviously, the devil's always in the details.
Right.
And in this first plan, there was 400 million set aside for municipalities every single year, which isn't there now. So municipalities have the opportunity to go get grants from the state to fix up their local roads and the county roads. That's not there now. It wasn't there before. So will something come about? I believe it will. I hate saying that I'm going to raise your taxes. Can there be changes in the structure of how it's going to go? Yeah. Could it be a progressive one? Yes, but it has to be a collaborative effort between the Assembly and the state.
Tell me, what's your view on investing in mass transit? The train infrastructure, which is also behind where it could or should be. How does that compare with fixing up the roads to you? Do you think that's important?
Yes, I do. Mass transit is absolutely important for a lot of different reasons. It crosses all ethnicities. It crosses all financial bounds of what people do and how they work and where they work. Not just the mass transit, not just the busing, the trains. I believe the light rail should be coming in. There's been places where it has been built and is being used effectively. There's other places where it's proposed, and I think will be used effectively. We have to move in the future, and this is an investment in the future. You can't stay stagnant. It doesn't work. Just like some of our laws that we have today are from 1904. Should they be changed to today's society and what's happening today? Absolutely.
Sure.
So, like I said in the beginning, there's lots of places for change.
Yeah.
That's some of the simple ones.
Sure, and New Brunswick and Edison connected by train, so
Yeah.
it's certainly something that could benefit both communities.
And you see more and more of our younger people that want to live by a train station. I'll take Hoboken as the perfect poster stamp of where they want to live, because it's a vibrant city now. You have great restaurants, there's places to walk, there's places to buy food. It's a nice thing. You have the path there, you have the trains there, you're 10 minutes away from New York City, one of the best cities in the world.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask about, Judge Barnes was the senator, had your position before you as the assemblyman for the district. He really championed reforms to the way police internal affairs work. Specifically in Edison, he wanted to see the state take over the policing the police, basically. Now that you're in the legislature, is that something that you share that view? Do you want to also push similar legislation and changes in terms of policing the police?
Well, Senator Barnes and myself go back a long, long way. And I'll use myself as an example, we're absolutely great friends. We graduated together out of high school at J.P. Stevens. I respect Peter enormously. From when he was a councilman in Edison, and then an assembly, and then a senator, and now I'm so happy for him to be the Superior Court judge. I've known his family for a long, long time. With this particular issue, when it first came up, there was internal unrest and very big problems in the IA of Edison. I'm not saying that's not anywhere else in the state, because there is. And Peter came out with, he wanted something to happen immediately to stop this unevenness, I'll say, inside these problems that we're cultivating inside the police department. Well, I can tell you that underneath Mayor Lanke, who's been in there now for about 3 years, going on 3 years, and Chief Bryant, and the council have all been together saying that accountability is going to be the most important thing, and we're going to hold everybody accountable. and that includes the police. There's been a lot of instances that have come up in the last few years, and the council and the mayor have stood toe to toe, agreeing about accountability along with the chief. We have changed, or he has changed a lot of the stuff going on inside. It has changed from when Peter first brought that bill up. The internal affairs people that were there are no longer there. That stigma or that philosophy of how they used to do things is no longer there. And we contribute that to everybody's effort to stop it. So it has gotten better. It also is underneath the view of the prosecutor. In the beginning was every single day. Now it's monthly, and it's running effectively, and that's per our head prosecutor, Carrie.
I want to talk about, you're in the construction business. There's a lot of development going on in Edison, some big changes, some new developments. I know Roosevelt Hospital's been around a long time. It's going to be transformed into housing. What's your take on all the development going on? What would you do differently, or what do you think the township needs more of?
Well, it's not just Edison, it's the whole state.
Sure.
And in Edison's respect, some of the ones, like you said, Roosevelt, that's going to be senior citizens coming on in the first phase. Then it'll be medical. There's a second phase coming, hopefully down the future in the next year or two. The other work that's going on in Edison that has finally started is Hart's Mountain, which was the old Ford plant on Route 1. Is starting to move. Top Golf is one of the biggest parts of it right now. There's a few, I think there's 3 or 4 other smaller buildings that are going to start to be built next year, and that's going to start to bring the process forward for that major development. There's another project on Route 27, CGS is knocked down their building already, and they're putting up another 1 million square feet there. So the process is moving forward. And this is not with giving tax rebates, it's not giving tax breaks. There's no pilot programs unless it's something that is critical to the seniors or the vets. That's the only thing that we've ever did a pilot program for in Edison. With regard to the state and other towns, and as being a builder, the red tape is just so cumbersome. And that's why I think New Jersey's just not a place that anybody looks to come back to build. I'll give you, for instance, a quick example. I have a global client, builds here in Sayreville, New Jersey. We put up a 240,000 square foot building for him. Took us a total of 1.5 years to get approvals, and then about 1 year and 2 months to finally build it. So the process was almost 3 years. 3 years. He did the same thing, since he's a global company. He did the same thing in fact, even bigger, in China. Once he had the approvals from the government, it was done in 12 months. He was done before we even got the approvals here in New Jersey. And the cost was phenomenal. The soft cost to do a project is just phenomenal. It is so prohibitive that for any global client to come here, they don't want to come here. Unless you put them into a free trade zone where they could possibly save some money, which we've done in Raritan Center and Heller Park, two of the 2 biggest industrial parks in central New Jersey. You have to give the client something to want to come here for. Now, we have a great skilled craftsmen that can build it. We have the talent and the knowledge of workers that span any type of work that you need here, whether it's IT or whether it's clerical. That whole thing is there. We have it. New Jersey has it. I love New Jersey. Right? It has so much to offer beyond always the bad part. Everybody talks about the bad part of New Jersey. Well, I know. I talk about the beaches, I talk about the mountains, I talk about where you want to go. We got Philadelphia an hour away, we got New York an hour away, and we have all of the right people here. It's the red tape that's got to get changed. Could it be done more effectively? Yes. Could there be ways to expedite the permitting cycle? Yes. And I'd like to introduce that in the state. because if a global client's going to come here and they know that they could get permits in 3 months, they may look at that. And if they know they have a work crew that they could address and bring in and have the knowledge, and them have the knowledge that they need, that helps an owner of a company want to come here.
You think it'll make a difference in the economy?
Absolutely. And that puts people to work, and that eventually puts revenue in the towns that they build.
Okay. I want to ask about a few things that are going on in Edison, been in the news. Like I know, I guess it was a little over a year ago, your party, Democrat Party, elected a new chairperson. It was pretty big shakeup in the Democrat Party. Tell me, how's that working out? Are you do you get along with the new chairperson? Are you is there still a lot of debate or division within the party, or has everybody kind of gotten back on the same page?
Yes, when Keith Hahn became the chairman, during that contested debate and contested election, obviously there's always two sides. Just like in any election, there's always two sides. The most important thing that has happened since then, it's been a transformation that the different sides have come together for more of a common good. And that's the Democratic organization, the party itself. You gain more by having common goals and working together than always fighting. And this is again something that I'm going to give the accolades to our mayor, Mayor Lenke, who's always promoted teamwork. And he's one who lives by it every day. Because there's some people that he deals with that maybe not be his biggest fan, but he'll always respect them, give them their moment, and try to work with them. And that's the most important thing anywhere with an elected official. There's not always our side and only our side. Unfortunately, we see too much of that in Washington, D.C. It's absolutely polarized. We can't have that here. You want to move forward, you have to work together. There's always room for compromise. Chairman Hahn is doing a good job. He's promoting that same ethic to stay together and have unity. I'm one about unity, not just in Edison, but in the district. It'll be 18 in the whole state. I'd like to see unity. I think it is so important that New Jersey stays unified. Obviously in this presidential election, and then next year in the gubernatorial election is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, that's a good thing you brought that up. I wanted to ask if you have anyone you're supporting at this point, or if you're still undecided.
Jury's out.
Okay.
I like all of the players very much.
Okay. So the other day I was reading in the paper, you're on the ballot in November. There's also a Board of Education election. I believe there's 4 or 5 candidates, and one of them has a conviction on his record, and he probably wouldn't be eligible to serve even if he won the seat. And that's the result of a relatively new law passed in, I think, 2011. I wanted to ask your opinion on that law. Do you think that's the way it should be, that a certain person should be ineligible to serve on school boards based on a criminal conviction, or do you think anybody who the voters choose should be able to serve?
Well, it's not an easy question to answer with one swipe of a pen. But when people serve their time and repent for what they've done, society has to give them opportunities again. We see it too many times where somebody's gone to jail, and I'm not going to use this gentleman as an example, but there's in other places they go to jail for something that is a small offense. They get hardened while they're in there, whether they're a year or 6 months or 2 years or 3 years. They come out and they don't have an opportunity to get a job. They're looked down on. They're absolutely segmented from society, and that just puts them back into a negative cycle that puts them back into an area where they're gonna break laws because they have nowhere else to go. I think that cycle has to change. I think that education is probably one of the most important things you could do while somebody's incarcerated. I think it should be mandatory. Okay? I would rather see them in a classroom learning about history, or learning about English, learning about the future, or learning a trade while they're incarcerated, versus sitting around doing nothing, watching TV. That's not helping anybody. They're there because they're paying their time for what they've done, but they should come out as a productive citizen. I would rather money be spent seeing them being educated.
So that's something you would support, is education
Absolutely.
for incarcerated?
Absolutely. And then when they get out, I would like to see businesses give certain people the opportunity to work. And with that opportunity, because they're taking a risk to some degree, obviously I'd like to see tax breaks given to that company that's going to hire those people. They have to get a break. You have to give them a cycle that they're going to see a positive effect. If they're there and they come out, that they're going to have something to look forward to.
Thanks. So another story that just recently hit the papers is a construction official in Edison, I believe it's Mr. Soltesz, is operating a gun business out of his home. So article characterized it as an apparent violation of the local zoning law, and it's kind of become an issue that's a bit of a Second Amendment issue for some people. And I wanted to get your take on that, whether you thought that this person was in the right or in the wrong operating this sort of gun business out of their residential home in a neighborhood.
Well, as far as I know, and I haven't been involved the last couple months in Edison in the details. I only read the article today, so I don't know the background. I don't have that back up. But knowing John, and I do know John, he's been doing this for many years. There's other people in Edison that are doing exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Yet they haven't been looked at. And not just Edison. Now when we go to other towns, statewide, this happens everywhere. Every place. So, with not knowing the details, do they have a right to do this if it was permitted before? I'm going to say the answer is yes. Hopefully that this is going to get settled somehow, some way, and the right thing will happen.
And what do you think more broadly about the problem of gun violence and access to guns and New Jersey's current laws? Would you propose any changes in the legislature?
I would propose some minor changes, yes. Do I believe in the Second Amendment? The answer is yes. Do I believe that some semi-automatic and automatic guns should be used for hunting? The answer is no. Should I believe if somebody wants a gun to that degree, I believe that it shouldn't just be the state doing this. I think this should be a national law. I think the Fed should do this. That if you want a gun that's a semi-automatic or an automatic, that it's going to be a 6-month process. You have to be able to vet that person with his background, with what he's going to use it for, with why they're going to use it, and you need that time. Right now, there's states you could go there and get it in hours. New Jersey isn't like that. You still have to apply for a permit to purchase. It's a little longer, but it's not that long. Again, I think it should be national, and that would help with these automatic and semi-automatic guns. The violence is unreal. It's uncanny that it's happening more and more in the urban areas of New Jersey, and not just New Jersey, but all around the nation. I'm extremely saddened by what's going on. The stuff with the gun violence and the police, that dynamic that's being played out is not trying to get things together to work it out. It's going in opposite directions, which I don't agree with at all. People should be working in harmony to stop it. Is there always going to be a problem someplace? Absolutely. There's always going to be a problem. But you have to let the judicial system go through its steps. And that's for both sides. I don't believe that any group or person should take the law into their own hands for any reason. And if they do, I think they should be punished accordingly.
I wanted to ask about some of the major issues facing New Jersey. I know there's probably going to be a question on the ballot this year about whether casinos should be allowed in northern New Jersey. And I know that's intertwined with the whole issue of what to do about Atlantic City and their financial problems. What do you think about casinos? Do you want a casino in Edison, in your district? Do you think that there's a place besides Atlantic City in New Jersey that ought to have casino gambling?
That's a tough one. I like Atlantic City. I think Atlantic City has still a lot to offer. It just hasn't gotten there. So unfortunately, a lot of times Atlantic City gets in their own way. And obviously the closing of many casinos has hurt them tremendously. Financially, it's just been probably one of the worst things that's happened in the state of New Jersey. Again, do you have the opportunity to change? Yes. Do I think that the casinos that are built there could be expanded and modified? The answer is yes. On the financial side for Atlantic City, I think there's things that we could change in the legislature that would help them. I'll give you a for instance, and there's a very boring topic, tax appeals. Okay? Every casino that's closed and every casino that's open has appealed their taxes. Obviously, it is extremely easy for a business to appeal their taxes. It's harder for a resident in their home to appeal their taxes. Surprising, right?
Yeah.
Business, all they have to do is show a loss. All they have to do is show an income loss. Because the income of a building the value of the building is based on their income. So the one thing that's not tracked in that is how many years it's changed, how the economy moves up and down. And I can tell you I can't remember if there's over 300 million owed in tax appeals in Atlantic City alone. The way the laws are in today, that once that settlement occurs, it has to be paid in 60 days. Now, years and years and years ago, when Barbara Bono was a senator, she was head of the budget committee, I had the ability to work with Barbara. And one of the things I brought up was this boring topic of tax appeals. That it was hurting Edison, because Edison is about 50% businesses and commercial versus residential. Now, when a tax appeal happens on the commercial side, and that tax revenue is lost, it automatically shifts to the homeowners. Automatically. Nothing else changes. The taxes still have to be paid. The revenue still has to be brought in, so it shifts to the residences. All I wanted was to take whatever your tax appeal was and stretch it out over 3 years or 5 years, so that the town could financially control how much they had to pay you in those 5 years, which is easier to control than to pay you in 60 days. In Edison's particular spot, we had to borrow millions of dollars, which we still have on the books today because of tax appeals. If it was stretched out, that tax burden would be stretched out thinner, and the amount of money we have to pay for those bonds would be less, which then helps the residents. So they don't see it. It's not a glorious topic, but it's something that directly affects your bottom line. With regard to casinos outside of Atlantic City, I'm not sure about that.
Not sure how you'll be voting on that.
I'm not sure about that at all.
Okay. I know that a lot of folks, you talk about, incarceration. A lot of folks are in there for nonviolent drug offenses, and a fair amount of those are marijuana, which a lot of folks think ought to be legal. Do you have a position on that? Would you support the legalization of marijuana in New Jersey?
Well, the marijuana that's used for medical reasons, absolutely. I believe that should be used like it's being done in other states. these people that need this in order to function, so that they have some type of quality of life, is important to me, and I think they should have that right to do it. The legalization of marijuana is something that's, again, this should not be a state issue. It should be a federal issue. Because you can't just have a state such as Colorado doing it because you're seeing an influx of what's going on. You're also seeing the problems that are occurring because of it. It should be a national issue. I'll leave it at
Fair enough. Okay. I guess the last statewide issue I wanted to ask you about is term limits. Do you support putting a limit on the number of terms you could serve in the assembly, or on the number of terms that a local official could serve as mayor or council?
The answer to that is yes.
You do support a term
I
limit?
support term limits.
Okay, so would you hold yourself to a term limit if one is not passed or in effect?
Hold myself to one?
Yeah.
If I'm doing a good job, I'm going to continue to do a good job. If I said I was going to stop in 8 years, I may do that in 8 years. If I feel like I'm not contributing anything, I would probably leave.
Okay. But you would support legislation to have term limits?
I think we should. I think it should be federally too. I mean, you can't have the same issues come up with the same problems reoccurring with the same people who have done this for 20 years, who created those problems 20 years ago, that are just creating the same problems today. It doesn't work.
Sure.
And the changes don't work. And I'm in a business that I see change every minute of every day. I like change. I embrace change. And most people are afraid of change. But at the end of the day, when change happens, the right change, I think that at the end of the day, they love it.
And yeah, president and governor have to have term limits. Why not?
Yep.
Why
Should
not
be
the
right
rest
down
of
the
elected
all
folks?
the way.
So last question. I just want to give you a chance to speak directly to the voters and say what it is that you love about Edison and Middlesex County, and what why they should vote for you this November.
Well, again, let me thank you very much for taking the time to interview me, and I apologize for taking so long to get here.
No problem.
With regard to the residents in my District 18 and in the whole state, as an elected official, I'm here for you. I want to hear your issues, your problems, your opinions. It's extremely important that we get feedback. It's very, very important. I can't say how important. One of the other things is that you have to come to vote, whether you vote for me or whether you vote for somebody else. This right that is there, that every single citizen has, should be used. That's your voice. That's what affects your quality of life, your children, your parents, your grandparents, your grandchildren. It affects your future. And it's so important that people, I know how busy their lives are. I know how busy things you get when you have kids and you're running them here and you're trying to work or work 2 jobs, but you have to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day and focus and listen and do a little bit of homework for yourself about what's going to affect you, because it directly affects you, directly. And I would love to hear from everyone. Obviously, I'm going to do my best to get your vote. Again, it's in November 8th. It's a big presidential election. There's going to be a big turnout with lots of people voting in different ways. And I respect everybody's vote for whatever reason they have. But at the same time, please come and vote. That's so important.
Thanks so much for taking the time. Good luck in the election.
Thank you very much.